Hey, it's June 16th, 2026. Going to call the regular meeting of the town of Willington Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It's 7:31 p.m. Members present, myself, Jeremy Brothers, Stephen Troyer, and Rebecca Sinoski. Let's see, item C, applications for receipt, PZ-26-7, special permit application for construction of a 10,000 square foot truck wash and 3,000 square foot storage building with associated site improvements in the design commercial zone. Owners JT Property LLC, applicant design professionals, and no discussion received on it.
I just wanted to mention, so you have, just so you can look at it, you have a single page from the site plan. I have, I've got the 11 by 17s, which I can give to you if you want them to take them home and bring them back, or we can hand them out at the next meeting. I've also got a couple of large copies, but I figured it was just received. You didn't want to have the whole set. But if you want to take them with you tonight to look at them ahead of the next meeting, I can give them to you. We do have them.
So this is the full application.
This is not. This is the just a single copy of the actual site plan sheet and the actual application form. There's we have copies of like the stormwater narrative and traffic and some of the big reports which they will present to you during the public hearing.
Okay.
It's just
How long does it take for the public hearing typically?
So we will statute prescribes the frequency that we have to run the notices in the newspaper. So now that it's received, I'll coordinate with them to figure out what of the next upcoming meetings are available, and we'll run the public notices for that meeting.
Good.
With the July 4th, I don't want to say it'll be the next one because I don't know if they're around, but unless there's some issue with a conflict on our end or their end, it could be as soon as the next meeting. Okay. We do 2 newspaper notices and they will.
When is the next meeting after this?
It'll be July 7th. So they will, they have to do sign posting on the property and they have to do abutters notifications as well. So, those will all happen ahead of that hearing.
Bob, you may have to grab that one. I'm going to be in Indiana.
Okay.
So we can maybe the van.
We'll put up a good fight.
I'm sure you will.
I'm going to be in Europe, but those guys are good.
Well, I mean, I don't know that it's something, given just the project and the size, that you'll wrap up in a single night. So are people here the second July meeting? Would it make more sense to just?
I'm probably going to be available most of July. I'm unavailable. I'm driving to Yellowstone the following week after getting back from a work trip to Indiana. So
Got it.
I'm going to be pretty.
Okay. Well, I will, I guess I'll check in with them and then we'll make sure we have a quorum, and if it's easier to just push it back to the second July meeting, so we have more people here. I can check in with Mike.
Here's a way I envision it going down. We're going to have a similar group that was here for the truck stop and everything. It's going to be all over again, but it's not going to last years like the other one did. It's
hopefully not.
It's not, but
we already sent it out to Joe Dillon, so for his comments.
Okay.
So I'll
it would be nice like having some potential information, like what's the tax impact of the town of this project, things like that. Interesting.
They may have included that in there.
Do they typically have business projections in these applications?
Like, I don't know what you mean by business. Yeah, it's
How
not
much revenue they're planning to make?
They include that on the top of page 2, but they not revenue on their end, but some of that. Yes, there's a traffic report, there's a stormwater report, all that is been provided. You can get it on the digital application. They're under one of those packets. Got it. That's okay. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to disrupt it. I
No.
do, and
That's fine.
I appreciate it.
They did mention positive tax base, but they didn't say how much. It's on the very last page.
Oh, right.
Next steps, public hearing. We probably shouldn't get too much into it.
Right. Yep.
All right, anything else on that one? Okay, so item D, public hearing, PZ 26 6, text amendment, section 11.20 to establish standards for middle housing as required by special session, Act 25 1. So call the public meeting to order, public hearing to order, and
So
we don't have people here. That's what's going on.
I will say that I've written more versions of this reg than I care to even think about at this point, and this is sort of a similar thing across all towns, but not a huge amount of interest. And I think that's probably because the bill really, I mean, it limits this to commercial zones, and so I think people are probably a little bit less worried about housing in commercial zones. So the reg that is in front of you has is the same as what you have seen now at least twice. The portions highlighted in yellow, I'll take you through, which are what changed from when we were here last. There's some recommended additions that I've added as, like I said, as we go through this town after town and different questions get asked, different situations come up, trying to just hone and refine.
I recommended an attorney or.
So I drafted the template after the bill was passed because I realized that everybody was going to be moving to this deadline. So we did, not for Willington, but the original template, we did work on some of the components with Haller and Sage. And this has been referred to 3 different councils of government, all of which have had positive referrals. So this template is very similar to the template that Bolton, Mansfield, Vernon, Tolland, Ashford, who else is surrounding to you? We don't cover Coventry, are adopting or have adopted.
So this does affect South Willington Village.
Yes, but the current South Willington Village regs allow for some of that, right? We allow up to 4. Remember that 165 came in about a year ago. So this changes the number of units, but part of that was already allowed. And obviously we didn't see this massive explosion of permits there. For the items that have changed, in the first line, I just reorganized it, which is why I is yellow, but then where you've got cottage clusters which do not exceed 1,600 square feet. So the bill requires that we allow cottage cluster units, which are shown on the 3rd page in that 3rd row. But I wanted to clarify, even though it's sort of understood, but again, this is new, that those units don't exceed 1,600 square feet. What we want to prevent is someone just building what could be up to 9 single-family homes on a single piece of property. So we're limiting the size of those cottage units to 1,600 square feet. That number can be adjusted if you feel it needs to.
So in Willington, design commercial and zoning map, where is most of it located?
I'll bring it up here. It is not enough.
We don't even have design neighborhood commercial over here.
The neighborhood, yeah, that we do have, but they're very, 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 very limited. So design commercial is the sort of light red that you see here, which is, West Wellington, Dollar General, and then along River Road,
Up to how far to the 84 interchange?
right to there, yep. And then,
So it starts at Dollar General, boy. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it runs in that area, Phelps Plaza in the triangle, and then along River Road, stops at the highway, and then over on by FedEx.
And it's both sides of 32,
No,
or just the
no, it's just the west side.
okay.
Then you have the TA and the solar project, and then you have Love's and that parcel that's
Small parcel by,
that's
on
yeah,
three
that
twenty,
L&M
where you take go left to right.
that's got a
10 acre parcel there.
fair amount of wetlands there. And then there's a small piece right on the other side of the FedEx entrance in between the highway. And
A little tiny one.
yeah, there's two little
Two
parcels.
parcels there.
Those are also pretty wet.
That's where that swale was at.
Yep. This weird swath of land in between River Road and Old River Road is technically design commercial, though it's very, very
It's
skinny.
narrow, it's weird.
And then really, we don't have, I don't believe, any design neighborhood commercial zones applied, but it is a commercial / mixed use zone in the regs, so we have to allow it in that zone, but it's not here. The other one that we're really would just focus on is the South Willington, which is the green.
Okay.
Though the three parcels that are behind
Lock and stuff,
Cable Tech,
lock and stuff.
yeah, yep, those are industrial. So this wouldn't apply to the industrial zone, so it wouldn't apply to FedEx. Wouldn't apply to those parcels up in that, and the parcel behind FedEx. So not a lot. Not a lot that we've got here.
So I have a question, Mike. In this 1,600 square feet per unit,
Mhm.
how does that interact with the state telling towns that we had no control over the size of, buildings?
We can set a ceiling, we just can't set a baseline.
Okay.
So we can always cap.
So they could turn around and make a 200 square foot dwelling.
They could, if they could meet all the building codes and health codes and all of those other things. In theory, whether they could do that with having a proper door and a proper window and stairs and egress. But yeah, they could do something smaller.
Okay.
You see any scenario where somebody come in here and try to change like residential and
This,
apply for zone change, like for
oh,
residential into design commercial?
like in a butter to a commercial zone, wanting to do this and trying to change the zone. I mean, I guess it's possible, but I think, it would be the easier path. Bill does allow you to set, so it says we have to allow these in commercial zones. It says you may allow them in residential zones. So I think in that case, the path would be for them to try to get the commission to amend this to make it applicable in other places versus doing a zone change for that. But I guess in theory, it is possible. Someone could do a zone change to commercial and then do just a 2 to 9 unit residential development.
That would have to come through us.
Yes, yep.
Which we have studied.
Yes.
Right.
The next piece that is different is at the I guess it's the top of page 2. So these are some sort of example terminology that are referenced elsewhere in the in statutes, but I can adjust or strike because we don't have some of these things. But 4 is meant to basically codify that we will refer and review to other members of staff. So I would say we could further adjust that to reference basically the zoning agent. We have town engineer, we have fire marshal, we have health director. We don't have a chief of police, so I would say we would just
Isn't
strike.
the first selectman's technically the chief of police.
But he wouldn't,
He shouldn't be doing maybe.
yeah, well, he's the traffic authority.
I thought he was chief of police.
Yeah, I
Just
mean,
curious.
well, I mean, he could certainly participate, but we wouldn't refer it. So, I would just make those two adjustments, but, because it's not a public hearing, we don't enter those into the record as part of the more traditional process. So we want to capture that. Then 5 talks about, conflicting language. So if there's a conflict with another section of the regs, we're going to go with the most, objective and stringent standard. And then number 6 is simply saying, if you can't come to us and say, I want to build 6 housing units and a Chick-fil-A and tell me it's as of right and by summary review. The housing portion could still be part of this, but if you propose a commercial use, because this could be residential only or mixed use, if there's a commercial use, that still has to go through the traditional process with a special permit or whatever. So we're just clarifying that.
It's a little off tangent, but like, say you're putting like a commercial use into something, like, let's take for instance in Mansfield, where they just build all those apartments, the shops, if whatever. You know, and there's not a single shop over there yet.
Yeah,
Well, what's that all about? You know, you put shops, there's nothing in them, and there's no parking really. If anybody were to come in, you really can't go there shopping. Where are you gonna park your car?
yeah. So
You'll find parking there now.
unless the market is really, really strong, you tend to struggle with mixed use like that in the same building. More people are headed in the direction of mixed use on the property, but in different buildings, just for banks and fire code and all these different issues. And they tend to, because they end up being on the ground floor, the units tend to be much larger than what the market can support. They tend to be too deep or just too large overall. And so you need $1 million to invest into the space just to get the uses that everyone expects in there to actually work. So this wouldn't require that anybody do mixed use. It just says that they could. So, you know, those projects, you know, especially the standard there's a lot of issues there, but
They're having trouble renting the so-called like
the workforce
apartments and everything.
empty.
But you know, they put all that stuff for potential shops with no parking behind it. And
Yeah, there's some issues there that are born from the developer who is, you know, largely a student housing developer who said, no, I'm gonna do apartments. And if you go on their website, it's marketed as student housing. And so if you're just someone living in this area, you're probably not gonna look to a student housing development to rent an apartment. I don't know much about how much luck they've had on the lower section, what they're being offered for, or the commercial component. But there's a number of issues. I mean, the standard charges if you want to have a car there as a resident. It's like over $100 a month for parking a car there on top of, you know, what you're paying for rent. So there's a lot of issues that would make that property perhaps more vibrant if they so chose to. So, all right, moving to the next one, D. We used to have 80% of the facade shall be constructed of primary materials. I now moved it to 60. So this is the reason why I moved it to 60 is because we're holding in the bottom of that section that 20% is for transparency, which is for windows. So this gives them a little bit of buffer for some other materials. They're not just saying
so the whole back of the place could be like T111 or something, or these other materials.
Well, we have in there currently each facade, so they'd have to keep each one consistent. So they couldn't just do a nice front and then
Just some states, the front of the place will be like nice and the rest of it is just.
a blank wall with nothing on it, one or no windows. So yeah, we're trying to avoid that. So I adjusted it to 60 because we have the 20% for transparency. And that gives them a little bit of flexibility if they have a secondary material or something else, but still keeps that primary. And then, moving on to section E on page 3, just because of the way the lots that we have are not super large, and then with some of the existing buildings, I'm suggesting we strike the language which would prohibit parking in the side yard, and so they would continue to be prohibited from parking in the front, but they would be allowed to park in their side. That's completely up to you, if you want to leave that in, and then, I added language that says that they should install sidewalks when they're in the South Willington Village Zone. Obviously, we've got sidewalks in certain areas. We've got a sidewalk project. So unless DOT says otherwise, we're asking they install a sidewalk. I'll pause there in case anybody has questions.
I think it's a good idea to strike the side yard in the common district, historic district. Most of the parking is either in the side or the backyard, so that it keeps everything a little more rural.
Yeah. Then I think the only other stuff that I made changes to is on the last page. So H is meant to clarify that if you come in with a pre-existing non-conforming conversion, right? So let's say Dollar General comes in and says, man, this dollar store stuff isn't working for us. We'd like to put 9 units in our building. So, we're gonna say, okay, well, here are the standards, and they're gonna say, well, we're pre-existing non-conforming, we already have parking in the front, we already have light poles, we already have landscaping where it is, we don't have any green space, whatever. So the intent of H is to basically clarify that regardless of the status of your existing building or site or parcel, whatever, there are certain things that we are not going to recognize as a pre-existing nonconformity when you change your use. So in the 4 things that I'm suggesting, and that list can be adjusted if you want to add or subtract, is lighting, open space and resident amenities. So we require that they provide 500 square feet of green space, usable green space for the per unit. That's, shaded or protected for kids to play or someone to take their dog out or whatever. So we're saying you're going to have to provide that. The landscape buffering, because again, they could be now or, in the future adjacent to a commercial use, any commercial use that we allow. And then operable windows. So those are the things that we're gonna basically, the standards we're going to hold them to regardless. And we can adjust those if anybody does.
Non-conforming things that are already there, like apartments that may be built in a place or things like that.
Yeah, I mean, if they have an illegal use, that would make them dead on arrival, but we're trying to avoid, situations where you have in my mind, it's like a square peg in a round hole. You have an existing building that maybe was used for commercial purposes and now they want to convert it. And now what you have are just people living in a commercial building because they didn't do anything to make it livable. So it's got, commercial lighting, windows don't open, they don't have any place for residents, children, pets, whatever to exist outside. And then they have no buffering to an adjacent use. And so I guess the most extreme example that I could think of is we have that pad site on that solar facility, right? So they have a pad site with no building. He could come in and say, oh, I want to put not 8 apartment units there. So they'd be basically adjacent to the I guess former guard shack or the truck stop. And he'd say, well, the site's already here. I don't have any landscape buffering. So we try to hold them to some standard regardless of what is existing on the site.
Is this the place where they're supposed to build a restaurant, have it?
Yeah.
That place?
So they got all the approvals, they have the pad, they got all the site, but no building. So he could come in tomorrow and say, or well, not tomorrow, but after July, and this would apply to him. But I don't want him to say because he's got an existing approval or anybody that they don't have to do certain things. So we recognize that there's other things like if there's parking in the front, the roof type, maybe the way the material that's already on the building, right? We're not telling you got to remove your flat roof and change all the siding and an update, move your parking lot and all those things. But we are gonna expect you to do certain upgrades.
So basically, like the old emission station that didn't have operable windows or whatever,
Yeah.
that wouldn't,
Right.
that would fall into this category. To me, that makes more sense, the old emission, it's a commercial
Yeah.
emissions building.
Yeah, pick any of those. We try to incorporate certain elements to make it a little bit more livable for a resident. But, you know, as I've said before, we're taking a really prescriptive approach because I have no idea whether we're gonna see 5 of these in the next year or 0. And the summary review process means that you review it, but you can't do anything subjective. You can't request something that's not here. You can't have a public hearing. And you can't have language that says, oh, well, we should be, you know, you need landscaping that's appropriate. Or the design of that building is not in character with the town of Willington. It has to be very definitive. So we're taking this approach so that it's very defined. And then we can adjust and relax as time goes on.
It's kind of interesting how they made it no public hearing. We'll have a public hearing on a truck wash, but we won't have a public hearing on a building that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I'm sure I've mentioned that they've already indicated that they fully intend to come back the next session and legislative session and have this expand into industrial zones. They tried it this session, it did not pass. There was a lot of opposition, even to people that supported this. But this is the second thing that they have now in the last couple of years used the summary review term for. The first thing was the as of right conversion of existing non-functional nursing homes have to be, towns have to allow them to be converted by summary review. And so they sort of use that term. So I'm suspecting we're going to hear about it more. So we will have to amend this. The first one that comes in may say a bunch of things don't work, and that's fine, but trying to create a situation where, since we just don't know, or at least we have as much as possible to, you know, we don't have very prescriptive landscaping standards about where these should go, whether they should be evergreen, you know, how wide the buffer should be. Our regs don't really have that because we have the special permit standards, and during the public hearing, you can ask for those things. So we have to kind of define it. And I'm sure it's not going to be perfect, but this is kind of the approach as of now. And then just some minor tweaks to I, just to again clarify some of the requirements and add and just to improve the flow. 7 talked about an affordable unit before, but I just added the statutory reference in there. Other than that, it is the same as what's been discussed in the last several meetings. I said we did refer to CROG. There's a favorable referral from them.
Any questions?
It almost sounds like we should go with this and just wait and see what the state comes up to throw at us next.
And just, admittedly, we're doing something that is brand new and a process that is new. And we are basically saying we've been doing effectively Euclidean zoning, which is what we have, where we have zones and we say what you can do in those zones, has been on the books 100 years. The case law that affirmed that nationally was 100 years ago. But this is how we've been doing it. Now what they're saying is this whole idea of commercial uses and residential uses, and this goes here and this goes there. Well, this is now saying throw that whole thing out the window because now it's as of right and you don't get a say. You get a say, but so this is completely uncharted territory. So I'm sure we're going to have to tweak it, and it may be up or down, but this is totally bananas.
Plan. That's why all this separation really was put in place.
Yeah.
To separate that, so quote unquote quality of life would be better.
Yeah, I mean, that the idea was by segregating certain uses, the ripple effect of those negative aspects of some of that stuff would whether it be hours of operation, traffic, noise, sound, light.
Yeah.
Um, so, this is,
Elected officials put this in place and
that's right.
there you have it.
Yeah,
So,
Well, we're getting less and less say,
elections have consequences, so here we are.
really.
So
yeah, it's unfortunate, and there's still
we'll
a,
have less to say, in my opinion, if it keeps going down this road.
you are correct. There are unfortunately a handful of towns that just keep doing it wrong. And most of them are, Gold Coast, part of the state, but they just keep doing crazy stuff and making bad decisions. And so the ripple effect is that those folks call their legislators and we end up with these bills. The vast majority of towns that or my firm works with that are not anti-housing, anti-development, anti-everything, keep everybody and everything out. That's just not the perspective of land use commissions in most all of Connecticut.
We'll see how it impacts Willington, because I can't imagine like many developers would want to tackle things in a place with so few services is out here and everything. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's a pretty good ride to go anywhere or whatever. So
Yeah,
well, we'll see.
right.
See how it goes.
It's very,
Maybe
very
like
costly.
dense housing and apartments and things like that. And okay,
Yeah, you gotta go somewhere.
how's somebody gonna make? Yeah, how's somebody gonna make money on these things?
Not at, $400 and some a square foot to build.
No, it would have to be all subsidized if you were gonna.
Right, or you can, and that's where the concerns sort of play into why we ended up with this is that, my concern, and not so much here, but especially in other towns, even in Tolland, but like in Vernon and other places that have a larger existing and aging commercial base, it is not that hard of a leap to sort of think that someone that has like 2 or 3 unit old commercial plaza that he or she can't rent. Oh, I got 3 units, I can't rent them. Okay, I'm going to turn them into 3 apartments, right? It's just basically a renovation. You put in a Home Depot kitchen and a toilet and a shower and, basically call it a day.
So theoretically, like Phelps Plaza could be housing.
Yeah. And so that's what we're trying. That's in my mind where the risk comes into play because the structure's there. So then it's just a conversion. And that's what we're trying. That's why we're trying to get very prescriptive with what the units have to have. There has to be green space because otherwise, yeah, I'm concerned that you're going to have really low quality units that are, used to be a barber shop and now they just put a new door on it and it's just a studio, one, room apartment. Which is not to say that's the intent, but there are certainly people all over the place and here, there and everywhere that if they can throw $5 or $10 grand on it and rent it for, $2,500 a month. The going rents are very.
I don't think we do a good job with fire code, life safety, all those
Yeah.
things, like when we allow this stuff, because get people dying and some dump is not
No,
not a victory.
no. Right. So with no other changes that I have, happy to go through and adjust or answer any questions or talk through anything else you saw. Like I said, the only other thing that I would adjust is just striking the chief of police and just including the zoning agent.
I'll make a motion that we close public hearing PZ-26-6.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. So public hearing is closed. Item E, new business PZ-26-6. Text amendment, section 11.20 to establish standards for middle housing as required by Special Session Act 25-1. Sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Everybody feel the same?
Yeah.
You want to make a motion?
Sure.
So we have to set an effective date. So this becomes law in Connecticut, July 1. So I would suggest we set the effective date for June 30th so that they're on the books.
I move that we accept the text amendment PZ-26-6 text amendment to section 11.20 to establish standards for middle housing as required by special session Act 25-1, effective date June 30th, 2026.
And should we say incorporating the edits that you have in here?
Yeah.
Incorporating
Just the yellow.
Yeah, edit,
the edit and breakthroughs of the version.
a second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. No unfinished business tonight. This is item G, approval of minutes from May 5th, 2025.
It should be in there, right, like the site plan.
I move we accept the minutes of May 5th, 2025 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, no correspondence.
We actually do, it's this flyer that was put out,
At the school.
school building committee,
Yeah.
so they sent it to all the chairs,
Okay,
so we got it.
thank you. Sure, this will be discussed weeks and months.
And actually, why is that? Next Tuesday, okay.
All right. Let's see, item I, public participation for items not listed on the agenda.
I have something if I might.
Are you public citizens?
Yeah, but I am. Darn too. You know, I've driven past the solar, charging area a number of times. And I've seen people having to walk from there over to TA. Now, I understand that one of the conditions in order for them to put that in was they were going to have some sort of a facility there for food and restroom. So because it's been dragged out so long, I'm wondering if we could hold them to a condition of not offering that bathroom on site, so that they would be required to put a sidewalk to the edge of their property abutting TA. And then if we could have a conversation with TA about them doing the same thing, because basically what people are doing, it's increasing TA's business. And it would certainly make it safer. Maybe there could be a hash crosswalk across where the trucks come and go. Because I've watched people kind of, the trucks coming and they're not sure where the truck's gonna stop and, they're dragging a kid along with them.
That might make it more sanitary too, because I'm imagining some people don't really make it to the truck stop.
Well, I imagine that there's quite a drop there that could facilitate.
That's not ideal what's going on there.
No. So, and I think that is probably an oversight on our part.
I think in the least case, they should put porta potties.
We okayed that,
You're right.
but I don't think our mindset in town, because we haven't got a commercial area / that connects to residential area. So we don't think about sidewalks. But what's going on there? It's not safe.
So I wasn't on the committee then, but there was no time limit on them to build a building there. I mean, it's been 3 years now, right?
Yeah.
And, yeah, at
Well,
least.
two at least.
He was, the issue that they ran into was that the solar use isn't a permitted principal use. So they put in the site improvements and the way that approval was structured is that they had to do all the site infrastructure and pad. But he was at the time, he had two different potential tenants that he was trying to sort of make this all work. And they just didn't, and I think the one that he was very close to a lease with was Starbucks. Starbucks pulled back on a lot of their future sites, everywhere.
When they had trouble.
So the challenge that he had was, if I build a building, then I have to find somebody that will fit exactly that building. And so we said, do all the site infrastructure, and the commission approved it with a condition that they would submit design of the building for comment, but we didn't make them build the physical structure. There's no time limit. A special permit doesn't expire, so we can't say, you've got to do this in 3 years or your special permit goes away. I think nobody contemplated, even the owner, that it would maybe be this long. And then having Love's constructed and some of the other stuff certainly detracts from the potential for that site, but I'll look to see
I
what
think
we
it's
have.
worth at least a conversation,
Yeah,
and it's a safety and sanitation
yeah,
thing. I mean, people are sitting in their cars for, I don't know how long it takes to charge in those quick chargers.
half
hour. But,
That's a fair amount of time.
yeah, you're traveling and it's like, I'm sitting here and, it might be the middle of the winter or it's raining like hell. What do?
right.
I just think it's in the public's best interest that we try to address this somehow.
Sounds like you're suggesting we have very little leverage, basically.
I don't think there's any leverage in the approval itself to say you've got to do this, because and really it's because it's a function of asking two property owners to cooperate.
Right.
And so it makes complete sense. The question is there a solution that is not wildly expensive or legally complicated that could address the issue to some degree? Because, the property owner might have an interest because he doesn't want the site to look like garbage and he's got to deal with all the issues. But if I'm TA, they're saying, well, they're walking here now. So maybe they'll simply say, well, if he's willing to do it, fine, we'll let him put a sidewalk to our property. They might not care. We had this issue with crosswalk and lanes and signage before we tried to get DOT.
They have enough trouble with their hotel.
Yeah, a whole other issue, but yeah. So I'll look at the approvals and we had, TA came before you, presented quite a while ago now. They were gonna do a bunch of upgrades to that entrance. Remember you looked at that?
Yeah.
But they only did some of it. They didn't do all of it, I don't believe.
There's double gates.
It's a double gate now.
They were supposed to have done some reconfiguration of the driveway as part of that, and I don't know, maybe DOT said no. But I'll take a look and see if there's something we can do.
It's wider.
Well, I mean, the only leverage I would think is suggesting he's got a safety issue, and you can avoid a lawsuit.
I think you could always get three.
Well, I just think it's worth it.
There was one,
See
they were pretty
Well,
wide,
we
I think they shrunk them. a
what
little
we could make
I
happen.
don't think we should wait till something happens.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
At least bring it up,
Yeah.
at least that, it's on
Have a conversation.
record that something was said, because it's pretty obvious it's not quite right, so
No.
And it's full on average. It's at least half full or
Oh,
more.
yeah.
I go by, there's always 2 or 3 vehicles in that place.
Oh, right, yeah.
Or
And
more,
there's
or
some,
more,
and
yeah.
weekends it's full.
Yeah.
and summer is gonna be really.
Really?
There's not too many charging stations in this stretch until you get into Massachusetts.
I don't know. And,
So that's all I wanted.
yeah, I will look and, we'll see what we can come
all
up.
right, so I don't see any more public anywhere.
The only other thing that I was gonna mention is, you may recall that we were supposed to have a joint
With
meeting with
EDC,
and BOS, but because we have no budget, it seemed like it was silly to talk about that in the middle of all that, but also the board of selectmen is there. So they wouldn't have been able to attend. So I talked with Mike McCoo, who was very interested in participating. He's like, but that's been their focus. So
well, we
once-
have a town budget, we just don't have a school budget yet.
yeah,
I
so
think we really need to prioritize this, get it done, whatever it's
The joint
The
meeting?
joint meeting, yeah.
Yeah, so, like I said, it would have, I mean, all three of them, I think, wanted to participate, obviously Ralph, Andy, and Mike.
But that's great, you should.
So,
Because you know what, we're trying to set some sort of direction for.
yeah. So it didn't make sense to try to get the EDC here and not have the Board of Selectmen. So that's why it's not on the agenda. The only other thing that we now have is that I think it would be hard to juggle that and the public hearing for the truck wash at the same meeting. You don't want to have everybody wait for the hearing to have that discussion, and you don't want to have other members sitting around not knowing how long that presentation will go. So my feeling is that based upon the budget and that we'll probably just do that as soon as it's done. So that we're not going to have that overlap, but I will coordinate with Mike and then EDC to make sure that everybody's available.
But it is gonna be interesting here. We're about to have a public hearing on probably the most substantial thing we've seen in a few years with this truck wash.
Yep.
We keep voting budgets down in this town now, at least the last couple of years. You know, talking about how, we need some sort of development and, that revenue's pretty flat. And, yeah, so be interesting to see the public reaction.
Yeah.
To this, like, oppose versus support it. I already think I kind of know how it's gonna go, but, if history.
I'm not anticipating a huge groundswell. I'm hoping that I'm right, but, it will be interesting.
It's right in the same vicinity where we had very intense reaction.
Yeah, it's, I don't think that
It's not the same
the hot
scale,
button there
obviously.
was, I think,
Roaring
Roaring Brook, This is a little bit, it's a secondary or third tertiary wetland. And, I don't know, yeah, there's gonna be interest. I don't
With
want
a service station on the corner, you've already got a truck stop across the street, you've got but
It's the right neighborhood for it. I'm just concerned that they don't have a real solid business plan based on what I heard from them when they first came.
Unfortunately, their business plan isn't our biggest concern.
It is a big concern if they build something and it's custom for them and they go belly up and then we have to find somebody to.
That's really not our purview, whether something fails or goes, because you know what, we're not the arbiters of that. If we try that, that's a loss that, we start like, great.
Well, I think they had no answers the last time. No.
which was surprising considering he was in the trucking business for a number of years.
Yeah, he was like, we build it, they will come. I'm really skeptical of that.
Well, I think that you're gonna find that their application is a lot more dialed in. When you saw it, they were at the zone change phase.
Understand, yeah, I totally understand.
And so they have the manufacturer of this equipment who has provided information. They've done obviously the full traffic analysis, the stormwater analysis. They understand how the facility will function from a traffic flow standpoint, total capacity, amount of water to be consumed and recycled. And so they now have, because the zone change is a subjective decision by you.
And now you have an engineering firm and.
Right, so now they've answered those questions, so I think you'll find them to be more the information be much more comprehensive than what was at the zone change level.
Don't get me wrong, I'm definitely a supporter of this type of business or any type of business of this significance. I just think that it's risky to take somebody in who's doing something that's really new and they really don't know what they're doing. So hopefully they know what they're doing.
Well, and deeming somebody not knowing what they're doing, we gotta be careful with that, real careful, Honoring anything like that to those people, they're spending a lot of money here, like, they've already got a zone change, they're employed engineering, they're putting plans, they've got an application, and then they need to be treated with the same respect as the other applicant. and American Wood.
And the draw for their business, is already in.
It's already
place.
there.
Yeah.
You know, you've got,
Yeah.
you know, trucks.
Yep.
So it's,
Agreed. It makes sense on the surface, I just.
Yeah.
Think they need more data.
restaurants are riskier than this is, in my opinion. Restaurants fail all the time.
So we agree with that.
Yeah. I know people that travel on RV and they said every time they've stopped to have their RV washed in one of those places, you sit there and you just wait and wait because there's this huge line of trucks waiting to get washed. So, you know, maybe that's just in certain places. Maybe it'll be here in Willington too. I don't know.
Well, you've got 2 truck stops and you've got FedEx.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Now it's, we'll see.
Okay,
That's all I have.
All right. So that brings us to item K, it's 8:23 PM, meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.